Good morning. Let's do some opening of the chest, some spinal mobility today, really getting into those joints that if we're not very careful, we tend to not move and they just get stuck together. There's so many of them that some of them like to do all the movement and others will just stay quite immobilized. So our goal for today is going to be to get a little bit of movement in all of them. Our vertebrae down lower tend to do this. They arch and round very well. The vertebrae that our ribs are attached to, they have less movement in them. That's okay. And then of course our neck can do all sorts of squirrely things. And we're going to see if we can bring some different movements carefully throughout the spine. So let's start with a tiny bit of movement. I know traditionally we start with our pranayama or breathing exercise, but let's get a little bit of movement going first. So we'll start with a seated cat, and cow. So feel that roundedness and the arch all the way from one extreme to the other. Do notice that the neck on here, I'm not resting the back of my head on my back. There's still a bit of length coming up here, so my neck isn't crunched. And we can breathe along with this. So deep exhale and inhale. All right, find a tall seated position. So maybe your ankles are crossed, maybe you're sitting on a bolster, but what allows you to have a very long spine? And for our breathing exercise, on your exhale, I'd like you to think about your tail reaching down like a root. And on your inhale, think of the top of the head lifting up like it's just being encouraged upwards like a hot air balloon. Exhale, grounding. Inhale, lifting. And add some shoulder movement to it. Inhale, lift up. Exhale, roll down and back. Drop those shoulders down low. Reach one ear to the ceiling. And I want you to imagine that this is going to sound funny, But if you had a laser pointer pointing out of your ear, I want you to draw little circles on the ceiling with your ear. Circle the other direction. And bring it back up to neutral. We'll bring those shoulders straight back. So we're not going to move our chest. Our rib cage and sternum are going to stay there. Move your shoulders back. Move your shoulders forward. Back and forward. So we call these types of movements isolations, where we're trying to move just one part of the body. All right, come back to neutral position. We'll lift the other ear. And draw tiny circles on the ceiling with that laser pointer coming out of your ear. And the other direction. And bring it back to center. This time our shoulders and our head is going to stay quite still, and we're going to isolate just the chest and rib cage. It's going to move forward and back. And then left to right. Try to keep everything still except for that rib cage. Yes, the shoulders have to go a little bit with it since they're attached, but we're going to keep that as small as possible. And then a circle. Keep your shoulders as still as possible, but stir around that lower rib cage area. Circle the other direction. You might already be feeling some like crunchiness in there. Be gentle with yourself. As long as those crunches don't hurt, they're okay. Just getting into some areas that haven't been opened in a while. All right, let's take one arm up over the head. And at first, I want you to think about pushing out right above the hip. Push out way down there. It's almost like you're trying to roll onto that butt cheek. And then imagine pushing out from the low rib area. Notice how the shape changes a little bit. And then imagine pushing up through the armpit. And now imagine pushing up through the shoulder blade. And then the chest. And let it go. We'll take the other side up and over. Press out from just above the hip. the low rib cage, the armpit, the shoulder blade, and the chest. And let it go. Let's play with some rotations. We'll take the arms up overhead. Shoulders stay low. Exhale, one arm forward, one arm back, rotating to the side. Keep your height here, and when your hands do touch the ground or your leg, you can give a little bit of extra push and twist. Inhale back up. Exhale, second side. Inhale up. Exhale, twist. Take it at your own pace. Last one. And let it go. All right, so these hip muscles can do a lot to hold those lower vertebrae in place. So let's go ahead and stretch them out by tipping our tail out behind us and dropping our navel right down towards the floor. And bring it on up. Go ahead and cross the legs with the other ankle in front. And again, head forward into your lap. So as we come down the spine and we get to the back of the pelvis, we've got the sacrum, and it's shaped a little bit like an upside down triangle or kind of like a heart. And I want you to notice that sensation, the sensation of pulling and stretching right around the back of the pelvis there. As we get older, we get less and less movement there, unless pregnant or having a baby. But yeah, so things start to tighten up, and that's not a terrible thing. We want to have a lot of stability and security in the pelvis, because that's our center of gravity for many of us. But we also can get pinches and tight, and all those muscles around there don't get a little bit of those tiny micro movements that they would like to have in a healthier situation. So imagine those lines, that back of that pelvis kind of opening, releasing some tension. All right, bring it up to hands and knees. And let's bring one hip and armpit towards each other. And then the other side. Back and forth. So you might notice that what you're mostly feeling here is the stretch in one rib cage. That might be the biggest sensation, and that's okay. You're noticing where the tightnesses are in the muscles that are keeping your spine from rounding even further to the side. We call it lateral flexion. All right, now let's take our right arm under the other. We're going to rest our weight on the shoulder and let the head rest its weight down on the mat too. And I want you to really reach. Really stretch your hand out as far as you can. So what we're asking our body to do here is rotate a little bit further. We'll take our free hand up over, bend the elbow, back of the hand comes to the back or waist, helping us to rotate a little bit further. And you might notice that your hips try to push over to the left side. See if you can counterbalance that by pushing them to the right instead. And unwind. Come back up to all fours. We're going to play with pressing back to child's pose. And then bring your hips forward towards the mat. So notice my elbows went out wide and then scooped around. That's to help my chest open. And I'm going to get this big stretch. Now, like we talked about earlier, the low back wants to take all of this stretch for itself. We're going to let it take as much as it wants, but then we're going to encourage the upper back, the spine through the rib cage to lift as well. And press back, child's pose. Come up to all fours. Left arm's turn to go underneath for thread the needle. There you go, big rotation here. You can take the upper arm around back if you like. Use it to help you rotate the spine even more. This time you'll notice your hips naturally want to go to the left. You can encourage them to the right. Relax the muscles of your neck. We'll press back to child's pose. Bring the hips forward to Bhujangasana or cobra. Again, I'm going to let my elbows go out wide just a little bit so I can scoop them around behind. Let them help the rib cage come forward. Shoulders down. It's like I'm trying to stretch my collarbone wider. Press back child's pose. All right. Come forward and we're going to rest on our left forearm and left hip. So along with this flexibility of the spine, we want strength of the spine. We want it to be able to care for itself. So we're going to start out with some very basic strength moves. So the easiest way to do these are from elbow and knees, and we're just going to lift our hips up off the floor. If your hips don't come off the floor, I want you to take weight off the hips. Get as much lift as possible. Okay? Hopefully you're able to start seeing some rounded shape on top. Maybe your arm comes up to extend that. And we'll do some lifts here. If this is just way too easy, feel free to lengthen out the legs and we'll lift from the outer ankle instead. As for the shoulder, make sure there's plenty of energy pressing down into the elbow so that you're not crunched on top of it. We want that strength as well. And let those go. Bend your knees. Come up on your arm. Let your side stretch. Keep your knees where they are. Turn away from them. So we've got this big twist going on. We're going to keep this motion like a corkscrew, turning and moving away. And let it go. We're going to head to the other side. So you can either roll over or you can switch sides of the mat. Again, we've got either bent knees or long legs. We've got lots of energy coming down into that elbow. Lift the hips. And let it go. Bend the knees. Come up onto the hand. Stretch out the side of the waist here. And turn away. played with opening the spine down around the tail. Let's play with loosening up the area between the shoulder blades. So we're going to start very simply by pulling an arm across. So very similar to what we did when we were threading the needle. And then I want you to reach up and pat yourself on the back with it. Shoulders staying low. You shouldn't feel like you're eating your arm. And then we'll take the other side, pull it across. Bend the elbow to get a little bit different stretch here. And let it go. We're going to play with eagle arms. So we're going to start by opening up nice and wide. Then take the right elbow under the left. Wrap those arms around each other as much as you can. Hopefully you can get the palm side of the hands towards each other. If not, do what you can to get those hands as close as possible. From here, we're going to drop the shoulder blades and lift the hands straight up. So this should feel like a tug of war. Your shoulder blades pulling down, your hands going straight up. They're right above your elbows. And unwind. Take it out wide. And this time, left elbow underneath. Drop the shoulder blades, lift the hands. And again, we get that sensation with our head of the kind of hot air balloon. It's just lifting, levitating right above the shoulders there. And let it go. Take it wide. Take these hands behind you. And warm up the wrists and fingers. And then press the elbows back. Lift the heart. So I've got lots of energy pressing down through my hands, and that gives me the ability to lift the chest. All right, we're going to play with this a little bit differently. We're going to drop down to our forearms. Scoot your tail away from your elbows. Lift the heart as much as you can, pressing down through the elbows. Lift the chest. And if you have tight biceps, this is going to be very, very challenging. But chances are those tight biceps are encouraging your poor rounded posture. So we want to stretch those out. And let it go. Make your way back up to sitting. We're going to interlace our fingers behind us. If your hands don't interlace, you can grab maybe your shirt or a belt or yoga strap so that your hands can stay tight together. Pull the hands away, opening across the top of the chest. Pull your ears straight back. Give yourself a little bit of a double chin here. Not because you've dropped your chin, but because you've pushed your ears straight back. All right, go ahead and drop your chin now. We're going to roll forward, let your hands come up behind you. And let it go. Whew. Get some blood flow down to your fingers. And make your way back over to hands and knees. All right, so before we played with child's pose to a cobra pose. We're going to go back to this idea of adding strength to our flexibility. So instead of a cobra pose with the legs down on the floor, we're going to do a upward facing dog pose. So I'm going to do that by squeezing my hamstrings, squeezing my glutes, and it lifts my feet, or excuse me, lifts my legs off the ground. So cobra, upward facing dog. Go ahead and play with that for a moment. I do want to talk about how I'm squeezing the fronts of my legs. I'm also contracting the abdomen, and this is to protect the spine, okay? You have to have that strong tummy to keep the spine balanced. So even though my rectus abdominis is all stretched out here, I'm still contracting to keep it all safe. All right, let's press back to child's pose. Reach your hands over to one side. Second side. Back to the center. Walk your hands forward until your tail lifts up in the air. So just another way to get this back arch, letting your heart melt down towards the ground. I've often heard it called melting heart pose. And then bring the weight forward over your elbows. We're going to lift our knees off the ground. So we're going to do a plank from our forearms. Drop the hips down. Lift the heart up. Let yourself come down to your chest. We're going to take the arms out like airplane wings. Bring your shoulder blades towards each other and down towards the back pockets. The arms just kind of go along for the ride. And let them down again. Shoulder blades come towards each other and down towards the back pockets. Arms go along for the ride. And relax. This time we'll bring our chest up along with that movement. So shoulder blades initiate, chest lifts to follow. We're going to hold this for 4, 3, 2, 1. Back down. Let it rest. Let's do it again. Bring it up. You might notice that your inhales and your exhales have a different amount of intensity in this move. So you might feel like on inhales you can come up a little bit higher, but on the exhales you have the tendency to drop. I'm going to encourage you to inhale, lift, exhale, hold. Don't let yourself go down at all. And now we'll relax. Let's do that one more time. Bring it up. There you go. So long spine, think of it from the tail all the way up through the top of the head. And let it go. All right, we're gonna make our head comfy, so you can give it a little pillow with your hands if you want to. And we're going to bring our feet together, side by side. And I want you to think of lifting your tail, but your feet come along for the ride. And release. And lift. We're gonna hold it. Now, chances are your feet are wanting to splay apart. I'm going to encourage you to keep them together. So imagine that if this is your mermaid tail, you cannot rip it apart. You're trying to lift that tail as high as you can without bending the knees. And down you go. Give the hips a little wiggle. Last time, up we go. And let it go. Bend your knees and imagine that your feet are windshield wipers. Let them go left and right. All right. Huckberry, come here. Huck, come here. Hi. He's going to do some cat yoga with this. All right, take that right knee and bring it up towards your armpit. No, you can't see because Huck is in the way. There you go. So bring that right knee up towards the armpit. And then come up on your elbows. take the other side. So you might feel this stretch a few different places. You might feel it in the low back, or you might feel it in the front of the hip. Believe it or not, that's usually the same muscle that you're feeling. It just makes this interesting route from the low back around through the pelvis and down into the leg. And let it go. All right, let's bring our hands under our shoulders. Elbows are reaching back. Lift up with your upper back as much as you can. And once you've gone as far as you can there, press down through your feet to lift you press down through your hand to lift you the rest of the way. If you notice your shoulders have shrugged, you've gone a little bit too far, bend your elbows to pull your shoulders back down. Press back, child's pose. Stick that tail in the air for downward facing dog. And let's go ahead and get some blood down to our feet and calves with a little pedaling motion here. Awesome. Walk the feet forward. We're going to come all the way to a forward fold at the top of the mat. Let your head hang. Let your tail lift. Now bring yourself all the way up to standing, either flat back or rounded back. We'll take the hands high overhead and then down to heart space. All right, from here, we're going to sit back in an imaginary chair. Notice how your knees are going in the same direction as your toes and they're level with each other. Stand it back up. Set it back down. Keep this lower half totally still. Isolate the upper half with some rotation. We're going to bring the elbow to the knee. Check out your knees. Make sure they did not move. Bring it all the way back up. Sink it back down. Second elbow to knee. And up. Take the arms up high overhead. And down behind the back. Feet are going to go a little wider than shoulders. Pull down through the arms to open the chest. And again, we're going to pull our ears straight back. Notice that oftentimes when we do this, we stick our belly forward to get out of the stretch. So again, with that isolation, keeping everything still except for the chin going back. Soften the knees. Roll the forehead forward. Let the arms come up behind you. Drinking bird. Really pull those shoulders up towards the ceiling, away from the ears. Let your head be heavy and relaxed. And come all the way back up. We'll take the arms up overhead. And down behind us, we're going to bring both hands over to one side. So we've got one little elbow and one big elbow. And then drop your ear towards the big elbow. Drop the chin down towards that armpit. And bring it back up. We'll switch sides. Lift the ear. Drop the chin. Bring it back up. Roll back those shoulders. Hands to the shoulders. We'll circle the elbows back. And then we're going to take huge windmills. Circle back one after the other. And I'm going to let my torso rotate on this. Now circle the other way. Bring them forward. All right, take these hips. We're going to circle them around in a hula hoop. Other direction. And then bring them back to the center. We're going to bring our feet closer together and our knees a little bit bent. And we're going to imagine that hula hoop has gotten very, very small. So instead of this big movement, we're going to keep it very isolated. So just from here to here, we're going to move it around. And the other direction. Excellent. Now we're going to head up to the rib cage again. So it's going to go around just that lower rib cage, trying to keep everything else quite still. Other direction. Here you go. Don't even move the head. Excellent. Go ahead and bring your chin down to your chest. And if your chin and chest don't touch, I want you to be careful that your back is very long and straight. It's only the neck that comes forward. Keep that nice, tall, elongated back. But you can take a hand and gently put a little weight forward to pull your chin closer to your chest. And it's interesting to notice where down your back you feel that pull. Oftentimes you'll feel a snag somewhere where you need to focus on some more mobility. Let that go. We're going to make a little bit of a hammock with our hands to rest our head in. And give it a little lift. Lift the chin. The back of the head is supported by your hammock, and your spine is supported by a tone engaged tummy. Stretch until you feel the front of the neck open up a little bit. Gently close the jaw. If the jaw is open, these muscles aren't going to get lengthened. So the teeth are gently touching. You can maybe move it a little to the left, a little to the right, all being totally supported and very slow. And bring it back to neutral. Let the arms come down. We're going to make our way down to lying on our backs. Leave your knees up. And we'll do that classic spinal isolation move of a bridge. So tuck your tail, lift a few vertebrae off the floor. Keep moving your way up very slowly. Anywhere where you feel a hiccup, where you're like, ooh, that doesn't want to go, kind of take some time to rock into it. Get that area moving on its own before traveling further up the back. Once you're up there, do it in reverse. Slowly lay it back down. Take that at your own pace, up and down. And then widen the feet. Take them wider than your hips. And then drop both knees over to the left. Over to the right. Back to the center. Bring your knees up towards your chest. And see if you can flatten your spine along the mat. So lengthen it out. Think about your tail reaching to the floor. The back of the neck reaching to the floor. And let it go. Move your hips a little bit over to the right and take your knees over to the left. Our focus here is going to be that spinal rotation. So feel free to experiment here and make it your own. I like to stretch my top leg out and my back arm out to really help me deepen this twist. And unwind. We'll take it to the other side. Hips a little over to the left, legs over to the right. And let it go. Make your way towards your relaxation pose, your Savasana. This is a great time to get any last movements in that feel nice, or get the socks or blanket, whatever's going to help support your relaxation for Shavasana. This pose is traditionally done lying flat on your back. The arms and legs a little distance apart. Letting the body rest into the floor. Let the body rest into the floor. Take a few deep breaths and notice how that encourages your spine to more deeply press into the floor. Allow yourself to bring your awareness to your tailbone. And then the next vertebrae up and up and up and up. One segment at a time. One thought at a time. And if it's hard for you to isolate and know exactly where those bones are, you could think of 1 inch at a time up your back. What does this inch feel like? What does the next inch feel like? Making your way all the way up to the base of the head. And allow yourself to feel the whole head as one. And a rush of energy, like stepping back into a warm shower, runs down the back of your body. Return to your breaths. Return your awareness to the room that you're in. And find some movement in your body. Eventually make your way up to sitting. And when you get there, we'll return to this sensation of inhaling, lifting up through the top of the head. Exhale, stretching down the tailbone like a root. We'll bring our hands to heart space. On our next inhale and exhale together, I encourage you to Om along with me with your exhale. We'll breathe it in. Thank you.